Oh, yes, we are live. Hello,
We are.
Alessandra. Hi, so good to have you today. Hi, everyone joining us today. Welcome. This is part of the Women's Empowerment Series. It's really nice to come in during the summertime. I know a lot of people are maybe by the beach still or by the office dreaming about the beach. And so we wanted to bring some of the summer vibes and share and present with you somebody so amazing, Alessandra Marazzi. I love her so much. She does such a sophisticated work, and she's been working so much on organization and how to improve them and how to bring the humanness into them. And that's what the world needs more of today with all the competition. Welcome, Alessandra.
Thank you very much, Hynd. It's a pleasure to be here and talking to you. Always a pleasure talking to you.
So, well, how about if you tell us a bit about you, about your background, and then you can share with the viewers and with me this beautiful concept that you have today and how you launched the Mycelium. Yeah. So, who
Okay.
is Alessandra Marazzi? Tell
Oh,
me.
that's a very difficult question and a fundamental one. So, who is Alessandra? Alessandra is an Italian who has lived all over the world. Um, as a very curious person, I've always been very learning oriented. It's always about learning and building meaning and exploring for me. And so that took me to an international career. First in corporate for many years. I worked with General Electric in 3 continents. And then a few years back, while I was in Asia, I spent 15 years in Asia. I transitioned to coaching and leadership development, and that's what I've been doing. But I've been doing it in a fairly unique way, as I bring in my interest for many different aspects of our human organizations, human communities, and I like to look at the interconnections and the patterns underneath. And so
I
I'm
love
always asking questions.
I love this. And that's true. I mean, it's very unusual to have spent so many years in a different countries. And that's obviously opens up broaden your knowledge and understanding about human, how they interact with each other. How much of that do
Yes,
you add into your work?
a lot. I always tell that I'm my key role in everything that I do is that of the observer, and I've learned from a very early age to observe how human beings connect to each other, how they thrive, how they when their energy expands and when it collapses, when they shrink. And I've observed cultures, I've observed contexts, I've observed systems and organizations. Complexity doesn't scare me, has never scared me, and I find complexity fascinating. And so I've turned that into my life and into my work.
That's amazing. And you turned it because you lived through it, because you observed it, because you've seen it. And I think that's
Yes.
what makes your work so unique. So and I love that. It's like, how did you come about this new concept that you are creating and you found it? I know you write so much about it on LinkedIn, and I see some people joining on LinkedIn. Hello, say hi, tell me where you're connecting from, and I will also drop the link to follow Alessandra because she has those amazing posts and stories about how she's approaching the new way, this relationship you're talking about into the organization. So tell us more about how you bring that and how you came up with this concept
Yeah, well,
and why.
Um, Mycelium started a long time ago. It's my life story. I cannot tell a point where Mycelium was born. I can tell some important points where this concept moved to the next stage, and it came through in a co-creative way. But it really started with me being very young and growing up in an environment where it was important for my own thriving, for my own also survival at some point, to understand relationships. And the focus for me has always been, I realized much later, has never been on a single part. It's always been in that space in between us and the others, between us and the world. And that has always been what I attune into, what I tune into.
Yes, sure.
And so relationships are central to my work. And that was the foundation. I stumbled over the amazing work of a quantum physicist and really philosopher as well, which is David Bohm, which gave words to this with a question that informed my work. And that question is, what if we consider what we consider as full planets, matter, stars, was not really what is full? And what is full is instead the space in between, what we have always considered as empty. What if? And with that, what if, Mycelium started, because it is the question that drives me. What if we exist in that space in between, and the self, the bounded self, the individual self as we see it and perceive it, was actually a relational one? Well, what would we be creating? What societies? What cities? What organizations? What families? And so on. That's what created Mycelium, that inquiry. The name came much later.
Let's can understand more about how this is linked to quantum physics, because you see that a lot of talking is happening today about being aligned with the infinite intelligence, being aligned with the cosmic understanding, how this quantum field are playing together. How can you see that? Like, I love how you said it's what if the empty side is where things are happening. How is that practically in an organization? How do you see it? Like, when a manager or leader come, all what he worries about is to be productive, is to have a team that follows him, is to have somebody that gives the best. How can you translate that into real life?
Yeah, well, the focus on relationships, and I would use the word relating rather than relationships, because it's a process. Life is a process, is always in becoming. And we have trained ourselves to focus on the outcomes, the bounded realities. Even when we talk, I call myself an impact coach. Even when we talk about impact, we are talking about outcomes, which is very important. I don't mean to say that they're not, but they divert our attention. The transformation happens in the process, and it is a process. So that's where Mycelium is so compelling as a metaphor, because Mycelium is a process, is the process of creating relationships. And so how does it translate for organizations? It translates into a shift, a paradigm shift from results, solutions, outcomes to the processes that create healthy relationships and that create containers for healthy relationships to thrive.
I love that. We have people
There's
joining
a
us.
aspect.
I just want to say hello to everyone joining us. We see Canada in the house, and we have more people coming in LinkedIn as well. And on Facebook, we're so delighted to have you with us. We are talking about a new way of conceiving organizations, a new way of doing business. And I love what you were explaining, Alessandra, how it is not about the impact and what you get at the end, it's the process. It's the journey. It's how you make that journey to reach, the end goal. And often because we get caught up in competition, in speed, in very tough business goals. We forget about the process, and that's where mycelium come in, isn't it? If I summarize it well.
Yes, it's mycelium is nothing else than the possibility of a new governance, a new governance that could facilitate healthy ecologies and economies as well. And it's a trust-based governance. It trusts in the fact that once we created the conditions for relating, what flows is life. Relationships are channels in which everything that is good flows. So you were mentioning quantum physics. You know, one of the concepts that I love is the fact that you know, it has opened up the possibility that to understand and to relate to a reality that already exists before it manifests, for example. So the manifestation is only possible with the act of observing. And so how would we change the way we related to each other if we took that ownership and responsibility for the observer role that we all have, for example? And that is one way in which we can enact this shift in our organizations. But nature, and I chose mycelium, which is a natural world, is derived from the natural world. Nature has known this forever. It's the grounding principle of nature. It's in the interconnections.
It's the interlinkages. You know, I'm loving, there's such a beautiful feedback in the comments, and I'm pulling this great thoughts. I totally agree. Well said. And a long one, which I want to put up here, relationships. This is a really important point to bring up when it comes to any type of interaction we have with others. Absolutely. So I think the concept is really resonating with everyone and with everybody, but it's hard, isn't it? I mean, it's tough. How would you work with, you know, large organizations and large leader and high level leaders to not convince them, but really to show them that if they change the way they approach the connection between the team, between the partners, they probably will have more productivity down the road. The business will be better, but that process sometime, you know, it's may not as quick as the one before. So how do you balance between that?
Well, first of all, it's not really up to me to show them. Our life is showing us. Most of my clients today come with feeling lost. Whether they are individual clients, teams, or organization, a common experience is that they report is feeling lost. And that's because in complexity, in uncertainty, the sense of self, a crystallized sense of self as we have always known it, dissolves. Yes. Now we have learned to associate that with disease. Our mental illnesses are connected to dissolving a sense of self that is dissolving. What if that was not disease, but a part of life? There is a continuous dissolving and forming. Life is about expansion, contraction, forming, and dissolving. It's a process. So it's not really up to me to show that what they've been doing is not producing the results they were hoping. We are feeling it at so many levels. The question is, are we courageous enough to try something different?
Yeah.
Are we courageous enough also to move away from a very anthropocentric conception of the world that places the human human concepts above law of nature, or natural laws that we experience all the time. Are we willing to give it a try, to try something different? It's not up to me to convince people, but it has to come from their own experience of, I've tried and I'm feeling weighted down, I'm feeling out of energy. All this striving is not taking me where I want to be. So the mycelium approach is much slower. You pointed it correctly. And it feels like, with the world getting faster, we need to get faster. And my question is, if we actually get slower, what would we see that we are not seeing? What would become possible if we slow down when everything goes crazy around us? In my own experience, that's when transformation comes. That's when life happens.
That's when life happens. I love this. It's when you slow down to see and to observe what's around you. That's when life happens. And we don't take the time to sense that. And it's amazing because this is linked back to how we started about the quantum physics. Because in quantum physics, you can jumpstart and exponentially grow, maybe faster than that you thought you would have if you just had the courage to stop, slow down, and observe what's happening around you.
Well, the moment we slow down and reconnect to the pace and rhythm of the earth and of our bodies, then everything is present already. The potential, what existing potential is already there, right? So it's just about, people today often talk about purpose, and they think that purpose is seeking, is about seeking something. Purpose is about slowing down and remembering who we are, remembering what makes us alive. So it's really a practice of courage, that of slowing down, because it feels a bit crazy and it's almost paradoxical, right? So, but that's when we find purpose. That's when we find others. That's when we find us in a relationship to others. That's when we appreciate the beauty of things. So the process of the approach of mycelium as a transformational technology, if you want, when taken into the organizational world, is really, first of all, a process of inquiry. Because in our rush of always doing things faster, we forgot to ask questions. And I'm always challenging my clients who come up with definitions of problems that are actually already the solutions. And I'm like, well, you are not asking the right questions. You are not asking the questions. So that's the first step, is a step of inquiry. Again, a slow step, because inquiry, coming up with the right questions, takes time. Takes time. Is evolving.
Because they probably stay stuck in the why this happened, the why it happened, instead of what do I learn from this? How do I grow with this? How do I reach a higher level as I overcome this? Absolutely.
Yeah. And they tend to work we tend to work at a symptomatic level rather than understanding the patterns that keep creating the same occurrences.
I want to read some of the comments from Rashid. Change is always a challenging step to take. This is the case when we are facing new or unusual concepts. People resist. That's true. He's talking about sustainability, ESG integration. It is. More comments from Aziz. He's saying a human approach seems to grow in momentum in a capitalist to society. And so, yeah, so a lot of comments about how relationships are individual level, impacting on the individual level, and is leading to and have more impact on the organization level. And I think that's so, these conversations, we can see organizations are more and more ready to embrace some of those new concepts in the way they do in business, because there is such a return into the more humanness of interaction within the organization, within business. That we need some of those soft way of being and what we call soft skills today, but it's really about caring, observing, taking the time to see how is that impacting us, and how if you improve the connections between people within the organization, you will get a healthier organization probably.
Yes, yes. And, the metaphor that I use um, is connecting back to the roots. So this is what mycelium is about. Many of the approaches to transformation, very good approaches. I'm not. There's no. I think it's part of the same evolution. We have moved from looking at parts to looking at interconnections. So many of the approaches are about building those bridges. Mycelium, I like to think of it slightly differently. It's more about connecting the roots and trusting that once we connect the roots, then what needs to emerge will emerge. And the life that needs to happen will happen. And the organization, the thriving conditions that need to be created will be created, and so on. So it's about connecting the roots, because that's what mycelium does. Mycelium is that fabric of interconnections, of hyphae that branch out. They branch out without directionality, without a goal. They branch out without a goal, with an unspoken intention that is simply the intention of connecting without knowing what it is, what is the need. Because only when the connection takes place, the stronger tree will nourish the younger and more fragile tree. Information that need to pass will pass. So there's an inherent goodness in it, and an inherent trust that we have lost in our organizations, in our human communities, collectives. We have lost trust. So mycelium is really about regaining trust. And once when we have that trust, it's about learning to branch out again, without control, branch out and fuse and blend with each other again. So life has evolved thanks to symbiosis. And symbiosis is a process where two unrelated organisms connect and create something new. So we have been scared of what is unrelated and different. So it's really a very compelling.
This is such a noble and a big mission that you are embarking in, really. It's to change completely the paradigm of doing business, to change completely the way we can start trusting each other again, instead of always worrying and being scared and thinking about what's negative that the other will be bringing. So when you bring that trust, it's like you bring more positive thoughts around relationships, around the business, and that will shift the whole paradigm, really. So it's like we're talking about a business, in the paradigm shift in the way within an organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Mycelium is a very complex project. It's
Yeah.
almost daunting, but
It's
it's not.
very sophisticated
It's a,
project, very sophisticated because it has a lot of innovative way of thinking. And I think
I
it's
would say it's
beautiful the
very
way.
organic and very emergent, and uh, and I'm constantly confronted with that same practice of trusting, being in the unknown, and um, I don't really know what it will look like when it's out there.
Mm,
It's growing through new conversations, open dialogues, open relationships that bring a new inspirations, and it's taking shape. So mycelium is the soil, right? And
yes.
the soil nourishes the ecologies that thrive above the ground. And
Mhm.
so the idea, the ambition here is to create something, a healthy soil that can nourish much more than what I can create and launch as a business. That's not the
Yes.
point. It's meant to be there as a soil that nourishes the ideas of others, and that created those interconnections, and those channels of nourishment,
Mhm.
safe and nurturing places for others. So there are some ecologies, what I call ecologies, that are already up and running, and some
Oh,
of them that are gaining momentum, and
uh-huh.
so it's a very exciting time. And I'm this is a lab in itself, because I'm testing this idea, this innovation in human organizations. I'm testing it in a business proposition, rather than taking it out into the nonprofit and into other forms of associations. I really want something that proves itself as a valuable possibility to inform also economies. And I believe that we need more humane economy, more human, more natural, more mycelium-like economies. And so I'm testing it on my own skin and see what comes out.
I think it's amazing. It's really, I am so proud of you, and such an honor for me to have you share all this knowledge and all, and watch the growth of mycelium and how you are putting together a concept that is easy to understand and easy to grasp, and for organization to feel that they are part of this whole movement. It's not just one person doing it, but it's a global lab and its whole ecosystem, because that's how it will become a real concept, is by
Yeah.
having everyone.
Yeah, and so mycelium has already become a concept of relational legal systems, to transform legal systems into more relational experiences. It has already become a platform of practitioners and coaches who work on creating those IFE, those interconnections, and return the possibility of a relational consciousness. It is evolving into a model of governance for local economies, local and global economies within the philanthropic evolution. So there's a lot out there that is already adopting mycelium and using it as a foundation. So let's see.
Let's see. And I'm looking forward to reading more about it. And I know there's a lot of people watching us today and that they resonate with this concept. So I will share the link so that they can read some of your beautiful articles about how
Thank you.
it's shaping up. And I
Yes,
would love to
please
have
come
you
back.
again so that you tell us more how this is growing and how this is evolving.
I will. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much,
much. Thank
Elise.
you.
What
Thank
a
you. You're doing
pleasure.
amazing. Mm.
Thank you very
And
much. I really appreciate it.
love you, Alessandra. And love you all.
Bye.
Thank you for being with us today. This is amazing. These women's empowerment series are to really present women that are doing incredible job in their field, in their industry, and are paving the way to a better future, to sustainable future for organizations, for businesses, for human being. And so stay tuned, and we will have Alessandra again. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.